Welcome to Vinnie Politan Investigates. I'm Ted Rowlands, filling in for Vinnie. It's a story that is as heartbreaking as it is infuriating. A young girl who was never truly given a fair shot at life. According to prosecutors, Madeline Soto was sexually abused for years and eventually murdered by the hands of her mom's boyfriend. It's the tragic tale surrounding the life and death of Madeline Soto. Here's her story. On February 24th, Madeline Soto had just turned 13. She celebrated her birthday with friends and family at a relative's house. That night, when Madeline returned home, her mother, Jenn, was there with her boyfriend, Stephan Sterns. Jenn sent Madeline and her boyfriend, Stephan, to go sleep together in an upstairs bedroom, and that was the last time, Jenn says, she saw Madeline alive. Stephan claimed that he dropped Madeline off at school the next morning, but Madeline never made it to school. She was murdered and discarded about 20 miles from her house. Prosecutors have charged Stephan with her murder. They also have charged him with something else, years of sexual abuse. They say they found incriminating images of Sterns abusing Madeline on his Google Drive, abuse that went back more than 4 years. Jenn Soto has not been charged with any crimes, but both Stephan and Jenn have made statements in recorded jail calls, police interrogations, and television appearances. Now, we investigate the murder of Madeline Soto. And if you recall, prior to Sterns being charged with the murder, he was arrested for sexual abuse after hundreds of child pornography files were found on his phone. According to prosecutors, Sterns had taken pictures and videos of Madeline while he was raping her and saved them to his Google Drive. Let's go back to the moment in the police interview where investigators first confront Sterns about what they have found.
What do you think was on the phone?
Text messages. Emails. Phone stuff.
Pictures?
Oh, yeah.
What kind of pictures were on there?
Trading card pictures. Lightsaber pictures.
Here's where I'm going to be brutally honest with you. There's your phone. And I'm pretty sure you know what some of those pictures are about.
Should I be talking with a lawyer right now?
Yes, is the answer to that. Sterns is charged with 60 crimes related to the abuse, including 40 charges of unlawfully possessing graphic material. But according to the state, those weren't the only images found in Sterns' possession. Take a look at what they discovered on USB drives used by him. One of the drives was empty, and the other drive contained more than 35,000 images of child pornography. It did not appear that Madeline was in any one of those images. The hard drive had not been used since 2020, and it didn't contain anything of evidentiary value in the case against Madeline. But he had possession of that USB drive. So if there was child pornography there, and it wasn't Madeline, who was it? And will Sterns be held liable for those images? That brings me to my first question of this investigation. Will Stephan Sterns face more child pornography charges? One would think so, given the amount of images that they found on that hard drive. Let's bring in our guest for the hour. Joining us, former homicide prosecutor and current co-host of the True Crime MTN on YouTube, Melba Pearson, and creator and host of the Grizzly True Crime YouTube channel, Gisela K. Both of you are well versed in this case, and sadly all of us are. It's just a heartbreaker. Melba, he's got all these images. One would expect that he would be charged because of possession of child pornography, but he's also facing the death penalty right now in the Soto case. So what do you expect from the state of Florida? Is this a situation where they don't need to charge him necessarily because he's already being pursued and he's facing a death conviction? But what about those kids on those images as well?
Yeah, absolutely, Ted. And that is my concern, is those poor children who have been violated in the most awful way, and their families may not see justice. So this is one of those situations where obviously the prosecution is going to go forward with the death penalty case against the defendant. However, they will likely file charges in relation to the, I believe it's 35,000 images of child pornography. But I think that would be more like a placeholder. So in other words, they would file those charges, keep it there, but the main focus is going to be the homicide. And then after that case is resolved, whether it be a conviction or a hung jury, whatever the case may be, then they will take another look at the child pornography case and maybe decide if they want to maybe, for instance, if he's convicted and he ends up getting the death penalty, well, there's not much of a reason to move forward with the child pornography case, and they may pause on that. But if it turns out that something different happens with the homicide case, they may use that charge as that case as a backup in order to make sure that he faces accountability.
Gisela, it's just another part of this horrific case, another little tidbit that that came out fairly recently. What does it tell you about this person and how scary it really was that he was around this girl with seemingly permission from mom?
Typical groomer. I mean, seemingly innocent, connecting with a child. He's collecting all sorts of figurines, all these toys and all of that. But look at what else he was collecting. And also there's the 35,000 pictures on one of the USBs. Imagine on all these old phones when he worked at Disney. And he was filming the roommates, the adult roommates in the house. So he seemed to be a collector of all things. I can only imagine eventually there will be more charges, but there might also be more people, that are charged, because usually guys like this would trade, and that is a huge concern as well.
So to that point, Melba, could they go to him and say, hey, where did you get this, or implicate other people? And he's in a position where he doesn't have a lot going for him, but is that something investigators would want to do? Because let's face it, as a society, this is a massive problem. And it is one that it's being conducted in secret on the dark web, et cetera. Any help would be big help to get kids out of harm's way.
Absolutely. I think that the investigators are going to do a thorough search and investigation and also question him with regards to the source of those photos. But at the same token, it's sort of like he could speak on it because he's hoping to maybe curry favor, but at the same token, it's not going to get him a more favorable plea or more favorable resolution. The death penalty is going to stay on the table. He's going to have to face accountability for what he did to poor Madeline. So I don't see a scenario where it's going to be, if he gives this information, he's going to get a reduced sentence or some other kind of benefit. So with that being said, it may not be necessarily in his best interest to even say anything, because if he's not going to get anything out of it, sort of in his mindset, what's the point? And his attorney may be saying the same thing as well.
Right, and Gisela, he's in a bad spot, and rightfully so. This is a crime that jurors, the population is absolutely disgusted with. The deceit, all of it, and his phone calls. We'll be talking about that coming up. When you look at what we now know in terms of the evidence, it seems overwhelming. And this is a death case, so you do need overwhelming evidence, but Florida seems to have it.
Yeah, so overwhelming. He's going to have 2 trials. So one will be for all the CSAM charges, the child sexual abuse material, the other one for the murder charges, and who knows if they'll pile on whatever they find from the investigation with these 35,000 images. That's a lot. That's a lot, but he's facing the death penalty. Things are looking pretty grim for him, but yet he's still enthusiastic. He thinks he needs his social security card because he's going to get out one day.
Yeah, and he doesn't seem to have hit home when his conversations that are recorded. It is important to note that these 2 hard drives were turned in by the father, Stephan's father, Chris Sterns, and not actually located by investigators. There could be more drives. Investigators haven't found them yet. Let's watch as Chris Sterns describes the hard drives during an interview with Hidden True Crime on YouTube.
I said, hey, look, there's a desktop computer at home.
maybe you guys should come get it. I said, okay, we'll make arrangements to do that, only to find out that the hard drive was removed from it. I know it was there Sunday morning when he left, because I told the police that after I found that out. So he purposely removed that hard drive. Why? Well, again, as I explained to the police, very forthcoming, that Saturday evening, he was having some sort of anxiety panic attack, and I've never, ever seen this expression on his face. Never. And something he had some sort of information and had no idea what it was, but he was really panicked. And then to find out that this hard drive was removed. So, you know, we're cleaning out his room a few weeks later, come across this USB drive, 2 of them, as a matter of fact. I put one in both of them computer, one had nothing, just like the evidence shows. The other one, I just hovered my mouse over the fields, didn't see any image, because again, you can't unsee what you see.
It's just file names,
File names, and just from the description, I said, this is not good.
Melba, he was like living with his parents, communicating with his parents, constantly, always asking them for money. They were a huge part of his life. This isn't like some dude that moved across country and is sitting in a basement conducting all this. He's in their house at times, around them at times, yet able to pull the wool over their eyes. That is a scary. I mean, they were shocked at all of this when it came out, and yet here he was doing all of this right in front of them, yet they didn't seem to know. What does that tell you about the cunning nature of him and other, basically, child predators?
Well, child predators have learned over time to hide their predilections because they know it's not acceptable by society. They know it's not legal. So, of course, they know how to be able to maneuver and get the sick fantasies that they enjoy, be able to get that information and get those kicks. So he wouldn't be talking about it at the dining room table. There'd be no way for his parents to necessarily know unless he was bringing children home, which is highly unlikely. He's going out and doing all of this dirt and disgusting things outside of his home. So again, his parents would have no reason to even think that that's what's going on. I'm sure they look like decent people. I'm sure they probably raised him well. And so there's no thought process where it could be that this is what the defendant is doing. So
yeah. Let's get a break. Our guests are going to stay with us as we examine the next question in our investigation. It's about Stephan Sterns' conversations with his parents. Doesn't Sterns know that his calls are being recorded?
I had wanted to grab a few things and get my ducks in a row, kind of prepare myself for whatever was coming.
Everybody says I went to the wrong crowd, but I think I was the wrong crowd. Nobody in this world loves you like your parents.
And he said to me, you know, wouldn't it be cool if I killed my parents and had a party?
I just couldn't get out of my head. I couldn't stop.
Which do you think you are? Sick and treatable or irredeemably mad?
Interview with a Killer. Season finale, Sunday, 8/7 Central. And don't miss the new season coming in 2025, only on Court TV.
She was so happy, too. She was looking forward to my visit here. She was looking forward to us all being together. I loved her like she was my own.
That was audio of Stephan Sterns. That was from a police interview where he described his relationship with Madeline to investigators. Detectives usually record these interviews to be used during the investigation, and eventually they are played in court. So let's listen to a jail call now, which are also recorded and also typically sometimes played in a courtroom. Well, this is the defendant, Stephan Sterns, talking to mom and dad.
There's some explanation why you left and went where you went? I was driving around. Okay, understood you were driving around, but they know where you were driving around. Yeah. And we know. Okay. I had wanted to grab a few things and
get my ducks in a row, kind of prepare myself for whatever was coming, but I couldn't find what I was looking for.
In that call, Chris Sterns was grilling his son, Chris's dad, of course, about visiting their storage unit prior to his arrest. As you heard, Stephan's response was suspicious, saying, "Oh, getting my ducks in a row, preparing for whatever was coming." And Dad's like, "Yeah, we all know where you went. Investigators know where you went." That brings us to our next question. Doesn't he know these calls are recorded? Doesn't everybody now, with all these true crime shows and these podcasts and everything else, calls are recorded from prison, from jail, from everywhere? Let's bring back our guest, still with us, former prosecutor Melba Pearson and YouTube host Gisela Kay. Gisela, this, I mean, it's astounding how people in these positions still try to put up the good face, and he's talking to mom and dad, and he's being evasive, but still talking and talking and talking and talking. You see it all the time. What about him? What do you notice about what he says, how he says it, and the fact that he just continues to yap when he knows it's over?
Yeah, his dad himself said, when Stephan's lips are moving, he's lying. So, I mean, I don't think at that point he's in such a comfort zone lying to his parents. We saw him, you know, lie in all the police video interviews, on the body cam, in the police audio interviews. So imagine how much he's lied to his parents in his life. So there he is like, "Oh, hey," when there's a jail call, "Hey, Dad." And then just saying this was the worst birthday present ever, you know, as if that's the big issue. So I think he's so used to lying and getting away with it. It seems to me like he still thinks he's going to get away with it, which is why he spoke like this. But he absolutely knows he's being recorded.
Yeah, Melba, this is the best case scenario, right? For a guy like this, for investigators, for prosecutors.
Oh, yeah. I mean, when I was a prosecutor, the best thing is when you're able to find that little nugget on the jail calls and being able to use that in your case in chief. So, you know, let's be very clear. When you make a phone call at the jail and you pick up that receiver, it says your call is being recorded. So there is no question that people are informed that they know that whatever they're saying is going to be recorded. Maybe it's not clicking that that recording is actually going to be used as evidence, but they're going to find out the hard way, one way or another. So, you know, I think that these tapes are going to play a very central role in the trial as that moves forward, and it's going to be another bit of insight that the jury will be able to get into his state of mind and how he views life, and obviously how he views this situation, which clearly he's not taking very seriously.
Yeah, and how he views himself in this life, and how he views his ability to lie to others. I think he sees everyone else on the phones and like, well, they're probably not recording my calls, and I'll just talk in code with mom and dad. They'll never know. Well, let's listen to another interesting moment from Sterns' jail call with mom and dad. In this one, he seemingly confirms the accusations that he sexually abused Madeline.
I wish there was a way that, you know, you and I can have a conversation, all of us could have a conversation to understand what's taken place, how this came about, how you arrived here, because it would help us better understand the situation, because we're at a loss for understanding how all this came about. I mean, we're just totally baffled.
Well, I didn't start it.
Oh, you didn't start it, but you participated in it, which is just as bad as not starting it.
I didn't start it, Dad and Mom. It was, you know, it was them. You know, it was Mom and Madeline. I mean, what is he saying? Gisela, I didn't start it. What does that mean?
Oh man, that's the question that keeps me up at night. And it's so haunting how he says it, like, I didn't start it. Who are you blaming? Are you blaming the victim? Are you blaming Jenn Soto? So it's just, he always shifts the blame. That seems to be his MO across the board with every interview that we've heard of him. But that question bugs me so much. Like, I didn't start it. Oh man, I'm sure it bugs his parents too. That's why they were asking.
And yeah, I mean, that to me is he is not taking responsibility. Melba, it's as if he's saying, well, this young woman was very attracted to me because of my great looks, and Mom was there too, and I didn't start this whole thing. Yet he's got all the porn on his discs from 2020 before he even knew them or was around Madeline. It's disgusting on so many levels. If a jury hears this, oof, what do you think of it?
Oh, yeah. It's going to be messy and disastrous at the end of the day, because the reality is, he is a predator. And predators function off of manipulation and grooming and all of that. So he spent possibly his entire adult life lying and concealing and all of that. So why would that change now? It wouldn't. And it is not unusual for people who are child predators to say, oh, no, the child came on to me. They want me. I had no choice. That sort of scenario, which we all know is complete and utter foolishness. But again, this is how they try to justify their behavior by saying, oh, this is a consensual relationship. And they go into this whole mindset, which is completely ignoring the fact that this is a child. A child cannot consent, period, end of story. So, again, This is just a part of his mindset to try to justify his actions, which there is no justification.
And trying to prop himself up as being this great guy. It's scary. I'm Ted Rowlands, filling in for Vinnie Politan. We're going to keep digging for answers as this investigation continues. Welcome to Vinnie Politan Investigates. I'm Ted Rowlands, in for Vinnie. We continue our investigation on the tragic abuse and murder of Madeline Soto. She had just turned 13 when she was killed, and her body was dumped in the woods. Prosecutors say she was sexually abused for years, abuse that took place in her own home, where she should have felt the most safe. Here's her story. Madeline Soto had just turned 13. She was living with her mom, Jenn Soto, and her mom's on and off again boyfriend, Stephan Sterns. In a strange arrangement, Sterns would sometimes sleep with Jenn and Madeline, and sometimes with just Madeline alone. Jenn says she didn't suspect anything was going on, but when Madeline went missing and was found murdered, detectives told Jenn that Sterns had pictures on his phone of Madeline being sexually abused by Sterns. Jenn's reaction has raised eyebrows and some suspicion, but she hasn't been charged with anything, while Sterns has been charged with abusing and murdering Madeline and is now facing a potential death sentence. Meanwhile, many questions about what was going on inside that home still have not been answered. Now, since Stephan Sterns' arrest, the public seems pretty certain of his guilt. The video evidence appears highly incriminating, and he was the last person to be seen with Madeline. On the other hand, the public and the media are divided on Madeline's mother, Jenn Soto. She's not charged with anything, at least right now, but many people think there is no way that she didn't either suspect or even possibly know that something was going on, since this was happening under her own roof and he was sleeping at times alone with her daughter. Let's watch a bit of her police interview where she pleads her case and her innocence to law enforcement.
When you guys interviewed me and when you guys showed me the picture of her, I believed the sexual stuff, but I didn't want to believe that he had done anything evil to her. I'm like, no, what if he did this stuff fine, but what if she's still missing out there? What if somebody took her? I still wanted to believe I believed him. I believed his whole story. So I was just like, I kept repeating that part. I'm just like, what if she did get dropped off? What if she got abducted? What if she's missing? But that was me assuming that you guys had the wrong guy. I wanted to think he was a good guy still, but clearly he's not. If I knew anything, I promise you, I would tell you. Like, I am willing to take a lie detector test, whatever the you want, but I don't know anything. He's never mentioned anything. I've never seen any signs. I tried watching her like a hawk. I thought I was doing a good job, but I wasn't. I was oblivious to everything. 4 years?
Minimum. That's just how that far back the cloud goes. And I find it hard to believe for me that you were so worried about how many pills she took at night, but not where she slept or what relationship she was. His interest in her.
I thought we were all safe. I thought because in that he hadn't shown me anything so far, like everything seems fine. Like he seemed like he treated her like
he treats you. In his mind.
It's so disgusting.
So now he's in jail because of what we found on his phone, not because somebody came forward and reported that he was abused.
No, I know.
She's not old enough to consent. She's not old enough to have a thought process to even want anything that was happening to her. It's abuse.
Where did you take her?
I'm going blank. I have no idea.
I feel like you're becoming emotional right now. I feel like you want to tell us.
If I knew what to tell you, I would tell you. If I had the truth, I would tell you. I don't know anything.
This is part of a problem. You did so many things and you never questioned it.
I didn't suspect him.
How can we believe some of the stuff that you're telling us, or believe that you don't know?
I don't know how to say it. I mean, I guess I'm stupid and gullible and very trustworthy, but I didn't think he'd be the type to do anything like this. I didn't doubt.
All right, Jenn Soto denying she had any knowledge of the abuse. What'd you think? Does she seem credible? That brings us to our next question. In this investigation, what did Jenn Soto actually know? Was she hiding something from investigators, saying, I don't know anything? Let's bring back our guests. Joining us in Orlando, Florida, investigative reporter for WFTV, Shannon Butler, and former homicide prosecutor and current co-host of True Crime, MTN on YouTube, Melba Pearson. Shannon, you're a resident expert here. What's going on with? Is mom cleared here, or is this an ongoing investigation?
Investigators told us very early on in this case that they just didn't believe that she knew what was going on, that they couldn't find any evidence that she knew. And they said very early on to us that she was not going to be charged in this case. Now, things could change if they find something else, but as it stands right now, Jenn Soto is not a suspect and is basically cleared when it comes to what happened to her daughter.
You buy that, Melba?
Nope.
Why not?
Because basically, first of all, I think it's the type of scenario where there were signs, and she probably had a gut instinct that something wasn't right, but she turned a blind eye, and she didn't follow that mother's gut instinct saying that her child is in danger, because maybe she wanted the relationship to work, maybe she was lonely, whatever the case may be, but she definitely put aside any concerns that she had, and at the end of the day, she sent her child to sleep with a grown man. Period, end of story. Listen, and she talked about how their intimate life was very vanilla and that he had requested certain things of a sexual nature that she didn't want to do, etc. And knowing all this, you then send your 13-year-old daughter to go sleep in that man's bed. Like, listen, there's no charge for being a crap mom, but she's a crap mom. Period, end of story. Now, could she be charged with child neglect? Possibly. But again, it's a matter of the evidence to be able to substantiate that charge. And I'm not quite sure that it's there. But at the end of the day, she's going to have to live with the fact that she let her child basically be molested under her nose and then end up being murdered.
During her police interview, Jenn Soto was pressured about her actions following Sterns' arrest. Jenn allegedly told Sterns' father they needed to get him a lawyer. She claimed it was because they had the wrong suspect in her mind, a claim she made already after seeing the photo evidence that Sterns sexually abused Madeline. Watch.
Have
Have you talked to Chris about Stephan needing a lawyer?
Yeah.
When?
I think when you guys showed me the photos.
So we showed you photos of Stephan raping.
No.
First thought you had was to ask his father if he should get a lawyer?
No. I saw a picture. I didn't see the rape. I didn't know she was getting raped until yesterday. I saw the picture of the oral sex happening. And I knew that was true, right? That's evidence. That's for real. That's happening. But I kept thinking, they're going... I don't know why I can't tell you why my brain kept thinking, no, he didn't kill her. Not that he didn't kill her, but she's still missing. She's still out there. She was taken. Yes, he's done this to her, and that's not okay. But I swore she was still, I felt in my body she was still alive. She was still out there. I told Chris to get him a lawyer because I felt like you guys were chasing the wrong person, but you weren't. You're not.
We showed you a picture. The picture you saw, she was giving a to a grown man, and you told his dad to get him a lawyer.
Investigators going hard there. Shannon Butler, what can you tell us about Jenn Soto as her past, her occupation, et cetera, et cetera?
You know, both Stephan Sterns and Jenn Soto have been a little bit of a mystery as this process has gone along, mostly because the stories didn't always add up. I mean, there's still confusion of whether or not Stephan Sterns ever worked at Disney. Some people say that's where they met him. Disney says he never worked here. The same is true for Jenn Soto, because when she does this interview, she talks about how she went to bed because she was starting a new job, but there was some confusion about what these jobs really were. She, according to investigators and to some of the interviews with people she knew, she really leaned on Stephan Sterns, it seemed, to take care of Madeline Soto. So there's a lot of anger about what kind of mother she was from the public here. They said that she often used drugs. She was on medication. She slept a lot. When you listen to interviews with the roommates and with the family, she just seemed a little bit absent in the care of her daughter. And now, given the situation, I think people would agree that that is true. But it's a little bit strange. It's not very clear about what she did. She went to work, we know that. But because the stories are so unclear, we're a little unclear about her.
Yeah, the whole thing is unclear. I mean, her reaction, Melba, with that, she sees that photo, and then when confronted with it, she says, "Oh, we need to get him a lawyer." And then detectives are like, "We just showed you a picture of that happening, oral sex, basically, your daughter." And she's like, "Whoa, I didn't know anything about the rape at that time." I mean, it boggles your mind.
Completely. And again, I mean, there's no license for being a parent, right? There's no guidebook or anything like that. But there are some basic things. Like, number one, you don't let your child just sleep anywhere with anyone, right? And yes, you've brought this man into your house, but you still have to watch your child. And at the end of the day, you sent her to go sleep in the bed with him alone. That's just not normal behavior. And that, to me, does not make sense. And then on top of that, you see a photo and your first instinct is to be like, oh, yeah, let's get him a lawyer. Let's continue to protect him. There doesn't seem to be any domestic violence in this situation, because that would be my first gut instinct, like, oh, is he manipulating her or something along those lines? But no, she seems perfectly fine. She just seems maybe desperate to have a relationship. You know, I'm not a psychologist or psychiatrist, but it seems to be that desperation to stay in this relationship and just believe that that this guy is wonderful when he's clearly not, and the evidence is in your face. So it's just very disturbing all around, and I'm just heartbroken for Madeline because she deserved way better than this.
Absolutely. What a horrible.
Early on in this case,
yeah,
investigators had told us during those interviews that they felt that she was much more upset about what was happening to Stephan Sterns and what he was facing than she was about the information about her daughter. And it was really, really disturbing for those early investigators in this process to see the reaction on that. And they just, from very early on in this, could not figure it out. I mean, this is your daughter. You know what has happened because of video evidence, not because somebody told you, you saw it. And she was very, very upset about Stephan Sterns, they felt, more than Madeline Soto.
It's unbelievable. We'll get a break. Our guests are going to stay with us as we examine the final question of the hour investigation. It is about Jenn's current legal situation. What is derivative use immunity? That's what she gets.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Yeah. Okay, thank you. All right, this is an investigative subpoena.
This case clearly on the national forefront, brutal murder of this young woman, Laken Riley.
Investigators say she was beaten to death while going on a run.
This is a heartbreaking time for the university. We have a suspect in custody, Jose Antonio Ibarra. He did not know her at all.
Such a violent, unprovoked act. Will there be justice for Laken Riley?
The murder of Laken Riley. Live coverage begins Friday, only on Court TV.
If you see my daughter, just please bring her home. I just hope you're okay, Maddie. I hope you're safe. I hope you're not hurt. I just hope she's okay.
That was Jenn Soto in an interview with WFTV just days after Madeline disappeared. Since the beginning of this investigation, Jenn Soto has spoken a lot about her daughter's death, most of the time during a police interview. But will any of her statements come back to haunt her? Take a listen to this interview that she did on April 18th, 2024, where the detective describes the type of immunity that she's been granted.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Yeah. Okay, thank you. All right. This is an investigative subpoena, so you've been compelled to be here. And in our country, under the 5th Amendment and the 14th Amendment as applied to you under the Florida Constitution as well, you cannot be forced to incriminate yourself. So anything you say today can't and won't be used against you unless you just don't tell us the truth. And I've already explained to your attorney, Mr. Bark, whether or not you've made any inconsistent statements in the past, that is dirt under the bridge, and either a misdemeanor was committed or it wasn't, but we're not going to be using that as a basis of some sort of perjury by false statements, because those other charges wouldn't be perjury anyways. So the most important thing today is to tell the truth. I also explained derivative use immunity, which means if you said that there was a gun, and obviously there's no gun in this case, buried in your attorney's yard, we couldn't go dig up that gun if you told us that, oh yeah, there's the gun that was used is right there. We wouldn't be able to do that. We would have to show that we learned all those things independently from this interview.
That brings us to the final question of the investigation. What exactly is derivative use immunity, and how can Jenn Soto use it to her advantage, possibly in this as we move forward? Still with us, investigative reporter Shannon Butler and former homicide prosecutor Melba Pearson. So is she off the hook just because of this immunity, or explain the parameters of it? Melba.
Oh, sorry, was that? Oh,
Yo,
okay. I wasn't sure. Okay, so the parameters, so derivative use immunity is basically what we used to call, when I was a prosecutor, queen for a day. So you come in, you tell everything that you know, as long as you tell the truth, you're good. Now, in terms of the use of that information, the police now cannot use the information you gave them to then figure out if they can file charges against you. It has to be separate information that they developed during the course of the investigation that showed that you were a person of interest for whatever the case may be. But it can't be tied to the things that you said to law enforcement at the time of your sworn statement. So she can use this to basically clear herself, clear her name, unburden her heart, and just share everything that she knows so that the officers can go ahead with the investigation and continue to be able to move forward with the prosecution of the defendant as it stands. Now, is she going to tell the truth completely? Is she going to completely unburden herself? That remains to be seen. But legally, she's protected for what she says during that time period to law enforcement.
Sharon Butler, has she given them anything of value? Has she contributed to this investigation at all?
Not really. I mean, she seemed to be pretty clueless about what's going on. I know the public doesn't believe that. Melba certainly doesn't believe that. People do not believe that she was that clueless, but that's what they said they found during this investigation. So there wasn't really anything, there was no reason really not to give her this because she wasn't providing them anything anyway. And I think their theory is later on, if we find something, it doesn't count in what we did here. And so they needed to get her statements. They were trying to, get as much as they could on him. And they just didn't think that there was anything they could get her on. So they didn't make her a suspect and they didn't need those statements. So this is why she is where she is right now.
Melba, one of two things here with this woman. Either she is just really out to lunch on many levels, or she did know something, and she's being uncooperative. And if you look at the different elements that have come forward, when she was shown that photo, her reaction was, Stephan needs a lawyer, not let's kill that SOB because of what he's done to my daughter. I can't believe this, what you're showing me. There was none of that. And again, it could be one of the other. To Shannon's point, they think that she's just didn't pick up on anything. Is that plausible from your standpoint, being a former prosecutor?
Listen, nothing's impossible. But at the end of the day, you notice signs about your child. If your child is being molested, there's going to be a change in their behavior. They're going to be acting possibly in a more sexualized manner. They may be withdrawn. They may be angry. There's certain indicators there that there's a problem. So normally that would be your trigger to be like, wait a minute, let me inquire more and make sure my child is okay. But I still come back to the fact that she sent her 13-year-old daughter to sleep with a grown man.
Shannon, she was under medication, was she not? She was taking meds?
Yeah, she was pretty clear in her interviews that she did take meds to help her go to sleep, and then investigators had told us there was some other substances along the way. So I guess that's part of the theory here, that's what was happening most of the time. But I know what people think, and I take a lot of criticism when we report this story about questioning how she didn't know. I mean, most of us are parents, right? How she didn't know, how come she didn't see any signs? I take so much criticism over that, but that's what investigators say, and that's what we're sticking to.
And hey, boy, I feel bad for her if indeed that is the truth, because she's lost her daughter, and she probably feels horribly guilty. I'm Ted Rowlands, filling in for Vinnie Politan. We're going to keep digging for answers as this investigation in the case of Madeline Soto continues.